Anna Kepner. Anna Marie Kepner was 18 years old, from Titusville, Florida. A varsity cheerleader and straight-A senior at Temple Christian School, she aspired to join the U.S. Navy and become a K-9 police officer. She held a boater's license and scuba certification, worked at a local aquarium supply store, and was described by family as someone who lit up every room she entered. Her future stretched out ahead of her with purpose and direction. On November 7, 2025, a cabin steward aboard the Carnival Horizon discovered Anna's body during routine cleaning. She was found concealed under a bed, wrapped in a blanket and covered with life jackets in a cabin she shared with her 14-year-old brother and her 16-year-old stepbrother, Timothy Hudson. The positioning of the body and the deliberate concealment indicated someone had taken steps to delay discovery. The ship was in international waters returning to Miami from a 6-night Western Caribbean cruise that had departed Port Miami on November 2nd, with stops in Cozumel, Grand Cayman, and Jamaica. The Miami-Dade medical examiner ruled the passing a homicide caused by mechanical asphyxia, the forcible restriction of breathing by another person. The FBI informed the family that Anna likely passed from a bar hold, an arm positioned across the neck, with 2 bruises found on her neck consistent with this method. Toxicology reports showed no inappropriate contact, substances or beverages were detected in her system. The death certificate listed the date of injury as November 6th, suggesting the incident occurred the prior evening and that her body remained concealed for approximately 24 hours before discovery. Timothy Hudson had not taken his prescribed insomnia medication for 2 nights on the cruise and reportedly told family members he did not remember anything from that evening. After the ship docked in Miami on November 8th, he was hospitalized for psychiatric observation before being released to a maternal relative in Brooksville, Florida. His claim of memory loss would become a central element of the investigation. The FBI assumed lead jurisdiction as the incident occurred in international waters involving a U.S. citizen. Evidence collected includes ship surveillance recordings that track movement throughout the vessel, electronic swipe card data showing cabin entry and exit times, cell phone records, and comprehensive autopsy results. The confined nature of a cruise ship cabin, combined with digital tracking systems, provided investigators with a detailed timeline of events. How did the suspect's identity emerge publicly despite juvenile protections typically afforded to minors? The answer came through an unexpected channel. Unrelated family court custody proceedings were underway in Brevard County regarding Timothy Hudson. During those proceedings on December 5, 2025, Judge Michelle Pruitt stood still stated in open court that the 16-year-old was now a suspect in the passing of his step-sibling during the cruise. This judicial statement, made on the record in a public courtroom, revealed information that would otherwise have remained sealed. On February 6, 2026, Timothy Hudson was arrested and appeared before a federal magistrate at the James Lawrence King Federal Justice Center in Miami. The proceedings were conducted in a locked courtroom with the docket sealed due to his juvenile status. He was released to a guardian's custody on pretrial conditions that have not been publicly disclosed. The specific charges remain under seal, though sources with knowledge of the case indicate he faces at least 2 federal charges. The concealment of the body wrapped in a blanket, covered with life jackets, positioned under a bed, suggests awareness of what had occurred and an attempt to prevent or delay discovery. The timeline indicates Anna remained hidden for a full day before the cabin steward found her during routine cleaning duties. Legal experts following the case suggest prosecutors may seek to try Timothy as an adult given the severity of the incident, the manner of concealment, and his age of 16 at the time. Federal law permits such transfers in cases involving serious violent offenses. The family has publicly expressed frustration that the suspect is able to walk freely while awaiting proceedings. Anna's grandmother stated on social media that she believes the FBI will ultimately charge him as an adult. As of February 2026, the case remains largely sealed under juvenile protection statutes. No formal charge has been publicly confirmed. Timothy Hudson remains free on pretrial conditions, while Anna's family waits for proceedings that the public cannot access. The investigation continues under FBI jurisdiction. While Anna's case remains sealed in juvenile proceedings, the next case involves a calculated plot that took 7 years to unravel. Miki Kanazaki. Miki Kanazaki was 52 years old, from Ladera Ranch in Orange County, California. Born in Japan and immigrating to the United States around 1960, she built a career as a paralegal and administrative assistant at a Los Angeles law firm. When severe arthritis forced her to leave that position, she turned to investments and financial management. Colleagues remembered her as smart and beautiful with a great sense of humor, someone who brought warmth to professional environments. On the night of May 25th through 26th, 2006, Kanazaki was strangled aboard the MS Island Escape during a Mediterranean cruise departing from Mallorca, Spain. Her body was thrown from the balcony of the cabin she shared with her ex-husband and traveling companion, Lonnie Lauren Cocontes. 2 days later, on May 27th, her body was discovered floating approximately 20 miles off the coast of Paola, Italy, by a scientific research vessel conducting unrelated work in the area. The Italian autopsy produced critical findings. Kanazaki's lungs were completely free of water, proving conclusively that she was deceased before entering the ocean. Had she been alive when she went into the water, even unconscious, her lungs would have shown evidence of drowning. Severe hemorrhaging throughout the muscles of her neck confirmed strangulation as the mechanism. The Italian pathologist who conducted the examination testified that she suffered a continued action that was carried on for a period of time, indicating the strangulation was prolonged rather than instantaneous. Because she was already deceased when she entered the Mediterranean, air trapped in her lungs caused her body to float rather than sink, enabling the discovery that would eventually bring her case to trial. Lonnie Lauren Cocontes, a former California attorney, became the sole suspect. The relationship between Cocontes and Kanazaki was complicated by financial and legal entanglements. They married in 1995 and divorced in 2001. But the divorce was strategic rather than personal. They ended the marriage on paper to protect assets from litigation related to professional allegations against Cocontes, while continuing to live together as a couple. Cocontes carried 5 prior felony convictions in Nebraska for trafficking and burglary, had served 3 years in state prison, and despite this criminal history, had obtained a California law license in 1993. In July 2005, less than a year before the Mediterranean cruise, he secretly married another woman named Amy Dow Nguyen while still living with Kanazaki. Prosecutors would later establish that Cocontes ended Kanazaki's life to collect approximately $1 million from her bank accounts and their jointly owned home. Why did the case take 7 years from incident to arrest? The FBI opened an investigation promptly, but the case stalled when Cocontes pressured Nguyen into providing false testimony before a federal grand jury. Without her cooperation, prosecutors lacked sufficient evidence to proceed. The breakthrough came in January 2009, when Cocontes' former best friend, a private investigator named Bill Price, secretly recorded a conversation with Nguyen in which he revealed that Cocontes had planned the incident in advance. Confronted with this recording, Nguyen agreed to cooperate with prosecutors in exchange for immunity from perjury charges. On February 14, 2013, Cocontes was arrested in Pasco County, Florida. The arrest date fell on Valentine's Day, 7 years after he strangled Kanazaki aboard a cruise ship. While awaiting trial in county jail, Cocontes recruited 2 fellow inmates to locate and harm Amy Nguyen. the witness whose testimony threatened his defense. He was charged with solicitation based on these recorded jailhouse conversations, though those charges were ultimately dismissed following his conviction on the primary offense. Trial commenced February 6, 2020, in Orange County Superior Court. The proceedings lasted several months, with prosecutors presenting the Italian autopsy findings, Nguyen's testimony about premeditation, and evidence of financial motive. On June 15, 2020, after deliberating for less than 1 hour, the jury returned a verdict of guilty on first-degree taking of life with the special circumstance of financial gain. The judge stated there was no question of the defendant's guilt in this court's mind. The district attorney characterized it as a case where the defendant almost got away with it. On September 18, 2020, Cocontes was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentence reflected both the premeditated nature of the offense and the special circumstance finding. As of 2026, Cocontes is incarcerated at R.J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego, California, where he will remain for the duration of his natural life. The case concluded 14 years after Mickey Kanasaki's passing, while Cocontes' case required 7 years to bring charges. The next case unfolded in front of witnesses who could do nothing to prevent the outcome. Christy Manzanares. Christy Lee Manzanares was 39 years old, from Santa Clara, Utah. She worked as a real estate agent at Summit Sotheby's International Realty and had previously built a career as an interior design consultant. She was the mother of 3 daughters, including one with special needs who required additional care and attention. She and her husband Kenneth had been high school sweethearts, the kind of couple whose relationship stretched back to adolescence and continued through nearly 2 decades of marriage. On the evening of July 25, 2017, aboard the Emerald Princess in U.S. territorial waters off southeast Alaska, approximately 7 miles from Forester Island, Kenneth Manzanares harmed Christy fatally in their cabin. The 7-day round-trip voyage had departed Seattle on July 23rd and was meant to celebrate their 18th wedding anniversary. The location in U.S. territorial waters rather than international waters would prove significant for federal jurisdiction. The day had started with a fishing excursion in Ketchikan. Kenneth consumed beverages heavily throughout the afternoon and into the evening. At dinner that night, his behavior became increasingly problematic. He began forcibly kissing Christy against her clearly expressed wishes, creating a scene that prompted her brother to intervene and confront him. The confrontation ended, but the underlying tension followed the couple back to their cabin. Inside the cabin, Christy told Kenneth she was done with the marriage and wanted a divorce. She demanded that he disembark when the ship reached Juneau and make his own way home. Kenneth ordered their 2 daughters, who were present in the cabin, to leave the room. They complied, stepping onto the balcony and closing the sliding glass doors behind them. Minutes later, both daughters heard their mother scream. Through the sliding glass balcony doors, they watched their father straddling their mother on the cabin floor, striking her repeatedly in the head with closed fists. The glass provided a clear view of what was happening inside. Christy's brother Dallas Hunt, hearing the commotion from an adjacent cabin, climbed between the balconies to reach them. When he entered the cabin, he found Kenneth covered in blood. Asked what had happened, Kenneth replied that she would not stop laughing at him. Hunt then witnessed Kenneth attempting to drag Christy's body toward the balcony, apparently intending to throw her overboard and into the waters below. Hunt grabbed her ankles and pulled her back inside the cabin, preventing her body from going over the railing. Christy was pronounced deceased at 9:20 p.m. The injuries to her head and face were so extensive that she was unrecognizable. Her funeral would require a closed casket. The medical examiner determined the cause of passing was blunt force trauma to the head and face, documenting multiple skull fractures consistent with repeated strikes from a closed fist. What consequences would Kenneth face for taking his wife's life while their daughters watched through glass doors? The Emerald Princess immediately diverted from its scheduled route and headed for Juneau, arriving approximately 6.5 hours ahead of schedule. 15 FBI agents boarded the vessel and conducted roughly 200 interviews with passengers and crew members who might have witnessed relevant events. The evidentiary record compiled during the investigation included 72 audio files, 541 photographs, and nearly 2,000 pages of interview notes and investigative documentation. Kenneth was arrested aboard the ship on July 26, 2017, the day after the incident, and subsequently indicted on charges of first-degree taking of life. The federal charge carried the potential for life imprisonment. His defense team began assembling arguments based on diminished capacity. On February 7, 2020, more than 2.5 years after his arrest, Kenneth entered a guilty plea to the reduced charge of second-degree taking of life. The plea agreement avoided the need for a trial that would have required his daughters to testify about what they witnessed through those balcony doors. Sentencing came on June 3, 2021. The defense requested 7.5 years, presenting evidence of an IQ measured at 80, brain abnormalities attributed to contact sports participation, previously undiagnosed bipolar disorder, and potentially dangerous interactions between medications Kenneth had been taking. U.S. District Judge Timothy Burgess rejected these mitigating arguments and imposed a sentence of 30 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole. In delivering the sentence, the judge characterized the incident as savage, bloody, and brutal. Kenneth Manzanares passed away in custody on July 14, 2021, barely 6 weeks after receiving his sentence. He was found unresponsive in his cell at Lemon Creek Correctional Center in Juneau at 6:59 a.m. during routine morning checks. The Alaska Department of Corrections stated that no foul play is suspected in his passing and declined to disclose the specific cause. As of 2026, Kenneth served approximately 1 month of his 30-year sentence before his passing. Christy Manzanares' 3 daughters lost both parents, their mother to their father's actions and their father to whatever occurred in that cell in Juneau. While Christy's case involved a defendant who passed away shortly after sentencing, the next case involves a boyfriend whose documented history of harm should have served as a warning. Tamara Tucker. Tamara Tucker was 50 years old, from Lawson, Missouri. She had earned a master's degree and built a career as a professional social worker, serving as full-time faculty in the social work department at Park University in Parkville, Missouri, for approximately a decade. Before her academic career, she led policy change initiatives at a prevention association, working to protect vulnerable populations. Outside of work, she was remembered as a family historian who preserved stories across generations, a music lover, an avid traveler who sought out new experiences, and a skilled photographer who documented the world around her. She was the mother of a son named Jordan. On January 19, 2018, at approximately 12:15 a.m., Tucker was taken from this world aboard the Carnival Elation in international waters approximately 30 nautical miles from New Smyrna Beach, Florida. The ship was on a 4-day round-trip cruise from Jacksonville to the Bahamas. Tucker had boarded with her longtime boyfriend, Eric Duane Newman, 53 years old, of Topeka, Kansas. The cruise was meant to celebrate Tucker's 50th birthday, which had fallen on January 17th, 2 days before her passing. The couple spent the evening consuming beverages at various locations throughout the ship. Over a period of 4 to 5 hours, they consumed approximately 21 to 22 servings between them. Tucker's blood concentration at the time of her passing measured 0.22%, nearly 3 times the legal limit for operating a motor vehicle. Around 11:30 p.m., Tucker returned to their shared cabin. Newman followed shortly afterward. What happened next was reconstructed through forensic evidence and Newman's eventual admissions. A verbal argument erupted between them inside the cabin. The specific content of the dispute was never publicly disclosed, but it escalated rapidly from words to physical confrontation. Newman placed both hands around Tucker's neck and strangled her. When she lost consciousness, but before she passed, he pushed her body over the cabin balcony railing. She fell to the 11th deck below. The official cause of passing was determined to be blunt force trauma resulting from the fall, though the strangulation that preceded it would have proven fatal on its own, given sufficient time. Eric Duane Newman carried a documented history that should have served as a warning to anyone who knew where to look. Between 2000 and 2013, a span of 13 years, he accumulated 4 separate misdemeanor domestic harm convictions in Kansas courts. 3 of those convictions involved allegations of battery against 2 different women, and at least 1 included specific allegations of strangulation. The pattern was established and documented in court records. Yet no centralized system existed to make this information accessible to potential partners. Could Tamara Tucker's passing have been prevented if a mechanism existed to check a romantic partner's history of harming previous partners? In the months following Tucker's passing, Newman engaged in an extended performance of grief. He posted tributes on Facebook calling her the love of his life, presenting himself to mutual friends and acquaintances as a devastated partner mourning an accidental tragedy. This public persona persisted for approximately 8 months while the FBI conducted its investigation aboard the ship, in port, and through digital forensics. Newman was arrested in September 2018. The charges were filed in federal court because the incident occurred in international waters, giving the FBI jurisdiction rather than state authorities. The investigation had taken time because of the need to reconstruct events from physical evidence, since no witnesses observed what happened inside that cabin. On December 19, 2019, more than a year after his arrest, Newman appeared before Chief U.S. District Judge Julie A. Robinson in the District of Kansas and entered a guilty plea to second-degree taking of life. The plea avoided the uncertainty of trial and guaranteed a conviction. Sentencing came on July 8, 2020. Judge Robinson imposed 12 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. Newman was also ordered to pay $8,496 in restitution to Tucker's family, an amount that reflected specific documented losses rather than any broader measure of harm. Tucker's family used the sentencing hearing as a platform for advocacy. Her sister, Dawn Tucker, spoke directly to the court about the need for a domestic harm registry, a database that would allow individuals to check whether a potential romantic partner had prior convictions for harming partners. She stated that they would have looked Eric up on this registry if it had existed and would have done everything in their power to remove Tamara from that relationship. The registry proposal would face significant legal and practical challenges in implementation. But the Tucker family continued advocating for legislative solutions. As of 2026, Newman remains incarcerated in the federal prison system. With good conduct credit applied to his sentence, his projected release date falls somewhere between 2030 and 2031. Tucker's family continues their advocacy work, pushing for systems that would give future potential victims access to information that might save their lives. While Tucker's family advocated for systemic changes to prevent future incidents, the next case involves a honeymoon that ended 9 days after it began. Karen Roston. Karen Waltz. Roston was 26 years old, from Florida. She worked as a physical therapist and masseuse and was also a ballet dancer. Those who knew her described her as naive, someone who did not believe harm could come to her. She stood 5 feet 3 inches tall, weighed 130 pounds, and had strawberry blonde hair. On February 13, 1988, the last night of a honeymoon cruise and the day before Valentine's Day, Karen was taken from this world aboard the Star Dancer in the Pacific Ocean, approximately 20 to 22 miles off San Diego. She and Scott Robin Roston, 36 years old, had married in Las Vegas 9 days earlier on February 4th and boarded a week-long cruise to Mexico from San Pedro on February 6th. At approximately 3 a.m. on the ship's jogging track, Scott strangled Karen with sufficient force to cause bleeding throughout all the muscles of her neck. The strangulation rendered her unconscious. While she was in this state, Scott lifted her over the 3-foot 6-inch railing and released her into the ocean below. She drowned before regaining consciousness. Physical evidence documented the struggle. Karen's earring, torn from her ear, was found embedded in the rubberized jogging track. A clump of her hair was found nearby, also embedded. Both were located 11.5 feet from the railing. Material from the track was embedded in Karen's clothing. Scott's face bore triangular gouges and a 4-inch scratch, defensive wounds inflicted as Karen fought to survive. The Coast Guard recovered Karen's body floating approximately 30 miles southwest of San Diego about 10 hours later. Her lungs indicated she was unconscious when she entered the water. What explanations did Scott offer for the evidence against him? Scott had emigrated to Israel in 1978 and authored a self-published book claiming Israeli persecution. He offered 3 contradictory accounts. She was blown overboard by wind, she fell, or Israeli agents ended her life in retaliation for his book. None explained the torn earring, the clump of hair, the track material embedded in her clothing, or the defensive wounds on his face. Scott was tried in federal court in the Central District of California. In March 1989, a jury convicted him of second-degree taking of life. Judge James Eidemann called it one of the cruelest incidents this court has ever seen and imposed a life sentence. After 3 rounds of appeals and resentencings in the Ninth Circuit, his sentence was finalized at 405 months, equivalent to 33 years and 9 months. The Ninth Circuit affirmed this in 1999. According to the Cinemaholic in 2023, Scott Roston was released around 2017 after serving approximately 29 years. His current whereabouts are unknown. As of 2026, Scott has been free for approximately 9 years. Karen was 26 and had been married 9 days. While Karen's case eventually resulted in decades of imprisonment, the next case involves a crew member who encountered danger during what should have been a routine port stop. Adriana Morales de Florencio. Adriana Morales de Florencio was 23 years old, from Atlixco, Puebla, Mexico. A tourism administration student at the Benemérita Universidad Autónoma de Puebla, she was completing a professional internship as a crew member aboard the Navigator of the Seas, operated by Royal Caribbean International. This was her second contract with the cruise line. On April 20th, 2017, the Navigator of the Seas arrived at Kralendijk Bonaire, a special municipality of the Netherlands in the Caribbean. Around noon, Adriana disembarked to buy souvenirs. CCTV footage captured her walking alongside a local man later identified as Raisley Sambo, 43 to 45 years old, originally from Curaçao. According to the prosecutor, Sambo lured Adriana to his vehicle and drove her to a remote location. When she resisted his advances, he harmed her fatally with a knife, including wounds to her neck. He placed her body in a wheelbarrow, waited until nightfall, and buried her in a shallow grave at Akunuku, a farm near Playa Grande. approximately 33 kilometers from the cruise port. Adriana never returned to the ship, which departed that evening without her. Her body was discovered on April 29th after 25 Bonaire detectives spent days reviewing CCTV footage frame by frame. An illegal firearm was found during searches of Sambo's properties. His computer contained concerning material. What sentence would the Dutch Caribbean judicial system impose? The case, codenamed Saturnus, involved Bonaire police, the FBI conducting forensic investigation when the ship reached Miami, and the Dutch Caribbean judicial system. Sambo was tried in Kralendijk Court. The prosecutor requested 22 years. The judge found premeditated intent could not be proven beyond reasonable doubt. Without premeditation, the charge was classified as manslaughter. On January 31, 2018, Sambo was sentenced to 17 years in prison. The judge ordered compensation of $1,107.70 to the family. This amount was widely condemned as grossly insufficient, failing to cover even the cost of transporting Adriana's remains to Mexico for burial. The 5-year gap between the prosecutor's request and the imposed sentence reflected the judge's determination that premeditation could not be established. Adriana's case became part of broader advocacy for cruise ship crew member safety. Crew members are particularly vulnerable during port stops, in unfamiliar locations with limited time, often not speaking the local language. They trust that returning to the ship provides safety, assuming they make it back. As of 2026, Sambo continues serving his sentence. Assuming no early release, he will be freed around 2035. No public reports indicate an appeal. While Adriana's case involved a crew member at a port. Stop! The next case involves a crew member who never left the ship and whose boyfriend has evaded justice for over 16 years. Camila Peixoto Bandeira. Camila Peixoto Bandeira was 28 years old, a Brazilian citizen working as a bartender and crew member aboard the MSC Musica, operated by EMSC Cruises and registered under the Panamanian flag. She had worked 7 consecutive nights on the vessel as it sailed between the Mediterranean and South America. Living in the confined environment of a cruise ship meant she was never far from colleagues, including her boyfriend and fellow crew member, Bruno Souza Bicalo Vale Ricardo, a 30-year-old waiter from Timoteo in Minas Gerais, Brazil. On the morning of January 10, 2010, the MSC Musica was at or near the port of Santos, São Paulo, Brazil. Camila was found deceased in the crew cabin she shared with Bruno. He claimed she had taken her own life by hanging from an overhead pipe using a bed sheet. The ship's officers, however, immediately suspected his account did not match the evidence. The captain, staff captain, and ship's doctor each noted inconsistencies. No sheet matching Bruno's description was found anywhere. The ship's electronic door entry system, which logged every keycard swipe, showed nobody had entered or left the cabin during the period when Bruno claimed to have been at work. His statement that he departed for his shift and returned later to discover her was directly contradicted by digital records showing continuous occupancy. When confronted, Bruno changed his story repeatedly, offering versions that failed to resolve the contradictions. Ship medical records provided additional context. Camila had previously visited the onboard medical center seeking treatment for injuries that staff suspected had been inflicted by her boyfriend. The pattern suggested an ongoing situation within the relationship that had now reached its conclusion. The Federal Prosecution Service conducted a thorough investigation. They determined Bruno asphyxiated Camila around 9 a.m. while she rested in bed. After she passed, he staged the scene to suggest self-harm, then returned to his work post serving juices to passengers who had no idea what had occurred below decks. Later, he returned to the cabin and raised the alarm, positioning himself as someone who discovered a tragedy rather than caused one. The motive appeared to be control. Camilla had reportedly decided to end the relationship and planned to disembark when the ship reached Santos. She intended to leave Bruno and return to her life in Brazil. Some accounts suggest she may have discovered his involvement in illicit activities aboard the ship, providing additional reason to ensure her silence. Would Brazilian authorities hold Bruno accountable despite maritime complications? Brazilian federal police formally concluded their investigation in May 2011, classifying the case as homicide rather than the self-inflicted harm Bruno claimed. The Ministério Público Federal in Santos filed formal charges of aggravated homicide in 2013. Under Brazilian law, the charge carried a maximum penalty of 30 years imprisonment. On October 21, 2013, a federal judge issued a preventive arrest warrant for Bruno Souza Bicalho Vale Ricardo. When police attempted to serve the warrant, Bruno was gone. He had fled before officers could take him into custody, disappearing into hiding. He was declared a fugitive from justice. In 2014, Interpol issued a red notice in his name. The organization's mechanism for requesting member countries locate and provisionally arrest a wanted person pending extradition. The red notice meant Bruno could theoretically be detained if he crossed any border, applied for official documents, or came to the attention of police in any member country. In May 2024, the Brazilian crime show Linha Direta aired an episode on the case, bringing renewed public attention and generating tips investigators continue to pursue. The broadcast reached millions of viewers. Camilla's mother, Rosângela Bandeira, channeled her grief into advocacy. She co-founded the Organização de Vítimas de Cruzeiros, the Organization of Cruise Victims Brazil, dedicated to protecting crew member and passenger rights and pushing for legislative reforms in maritime environments. As of 2026, Bruno Souza Bicalho Vale Ricardo has remained a fugitive for more than 16 years. He has never been apprehended, brought to trial, or convicted. The Interpol Red Notice remains active. Brazilian authorities maintain the arrest warrant. If Bruno is ever located and taken into custody, he faces trial on aggravated homicide charges and up to 30 years in prison. Until that day, Camilla's family waits for justice that remains beyond reach. While Bruno continues to evade capture, the next case involves a crew member who vanished without a trace, leaving evidence of foul play but no answers. Angelo Faliva. Angelo Faliva was 31 years old, from Cremona in the Lombardy region of northern Italy. He had worked as a chef for Princess Cruises since 2006, building a career in shipboard food service. By November 2009, he was on his third 6-month contract, an indication of his value as an employee. His assignment was first cook in Sabatini's, the Italian specialty restaurant aboard the Coral Princess, where passengers paid premium prices for authentic cuisine. Colleagues and family described him as happy, healthy, outgoing, and well-liked. On the evening of November 25, 2009, the Coral Princess was on day 4 of a 15-day cruise from Fort Lauderdale to Los Angeles, sailing through Caribbean waters between Aruba and Cartagena, Colombia. Angelo was working his regular shift in the Sabatini's kitchen, preparing meals for dinner service. His shift was not scheduled to end until 10 p.m. At approximately 8:15 p.m., surveillance cameras captured Angelo entering a crew-only elevator after leaving the kitchen. This was the last confirmed sighting. He never returned to his shift. He never appeared in his cabin. He never reported for duty the following morning. He simply ceased to exist in any verifiable way. The circumstances pointed strongly toward foul play. a life preserver was discovered missing from Deck 7. This alone might suggest someone entering the water voluntarily or accidentally. But the life preserver's nighttime illumination flares had been torn off and left on deck. No person attempting self-harm would take a flotation device designed to keep them alive. No person accidentally falling overboard would first remove flares. The logical explanation was that someone else used the preserver to dispose of a body, ensuring it would eventually sink once air escaped. Additional evidence suggested deliberate tampering with records. The list of diners at Sabatini's on November 25th was deleted from ship computer systems. Someone dining that night did not want their presence documented. Angelo's personal computer showed signs of tampering, with approximately 10 emails between him and someone named Tony deleted. The content of those communications remained unknown. Angelo's gold necklace presented another mystery. Family confirmed he never removed it under any circumstances. Yet after his disappearance, the necklace was returned to the family. His cabin mate stated definitively that the necklace had not been in their shared cabin's drawer before Angelo vanished. Someone retrieved it from Angelo, either before or after his disappearance, and it reached the family through channels never explained. 3 days before vanishing, Angelo emailed his sister Chiara, mentioning a dispute with a supervisor. The details of that dispute were never fully disclosed. Why did the investigation fail to identify who was responsible? The Coral Princess was registered in Bermuda, making Bermuda authorities responsible for investigating. But Bermuda is a small territory with limited resources, and the ship was thousands of miles away, sailing toward Los Angeles. Bermuda police did not arrive until 10 days after the disappearance, by which time the ship had completed its voyage, discharged passengers, and cycled through crew members. Investigators reportedly interviewed only one worker, a completely inadequate effort given the suspicious circumstances. The FBI became involved when the Coral Princess docked in Los Angeles on December 7, 2009, 12 days after Angelo vanished. Agents processed his sealed cabin, but the delay had allowed physical traces to degrade. The Colombian Coast Guard searched waters near Cartagena, where the ship had been closest to land, but found nothing. Princess Cruises drew criticism for its handling. The company delayed providing surveillance footage for almost a month. Representatives refused to cooperate meaningfully with the family. The stonewalling suggested an institution more concerned with liability than truth. Angelo's sister Chiara became a tireless advocate. She appeared on Ci l'ha visto, Italy's prominent missing persons program. She traveled to Colombia and the United States pursuing leads. She refused to accept that her brother had simply vanished without explanation. Angelo's father, Roberto Faliva, carried the weight of not knowing for more than a decade. He passed away in August 2021 without ever learning what happened to his son. The questions that haunted him for 12 years went with him unanswered. As of 2026, no charges have been filed in connection with Angelo Faliva's disappearance. No suspect has been publicly identified. No body has been recovered from Caribbean waters. The case remains cold 16 years after a chef walked into a crew elevator and never walked out. While Angelo's case remains unsolved, the next case involves a woman who went overboard under circumstances that prompted family suspicion despite FBI conclusions. Mindy Jordan. Mindy Jordan was 46 years old, from Pine Hill, New Jersey. She worked as a registered nurse, a profession that required both technical skill and emotional resilience in caring for patients through illness and recovery. She was the mother of 2 teenagers who depended on her presence in their lives. Physically, she was notably small. Standing just 4 feet 10 inches tall, and weighing approximately 98 pounds. Those who knew her described her as active, dedicated to her family and profession, and not prone to risky or reckless behavior. On Mother's Day, May 11, 2008, at approximately 7:53 p.m., Jordan went overboard from her Deck 9 balcony cabin aboard the Norwegian Dawn. The ship was in the Atlantic Ocean, approximately 45 miles northeast of Atlantic City, New Jersey, having departed New York City at 4 p.m. bound for Bermuda. A severe nor'easter was battering the region, generating winds exceeding 50 miles per hour and building seas to heights of 10 feet. Heavy rain reduced visibility and made conditions on exposed decks dangerous for anyone venturing outside. Jordan had boarded the cruise with her boyfriend, Jorge Caputo, 56 years old, along with another couple who occupied an adjacent stateroom. The arrangement allowed both couples to socialize while maintaining separate accommodations. The ship's interior surveillance system, which covered hallways and common areas but not individual cabins or balconies, recorded relevant movements that evening. At 7:36 p.m., interior cameras captured Caputo leaving the stateroom he shared with Jordan and walking to the adjacent cabin to visit their friends. 17 minutes later, at 7:53 p.m., exterior cameras captured Jordan going over the balcony railing. She was alone when she went over. At 7:57 p.m., 4 minutes after the exterior footage showed her going overboard, a man overboard alert was issued throughout the ship. The U.S. Coast Guard launched a search operation despite the dangerous weather conditions. For 2 days, Coast Guard vessels and aircraft searched the waters where Jordan would have entered the Atlantic. Water temperature was approximately 51 degrees Fahrenheit. Cold enough that survival time, even for someone who remained conscious after entering the water, was estimated at 1 to 2 hours. The storm conditions made survival virtually impossible. After 2 days, the Coast Guard suspended the search. Jordan's family, led by her mother Louise Horton, immediately raised concerns about Caputo and the circumstances of her daughter's passing. Their suspicions were grounded in documented history. Approximately 6 months before the Mother's Day cruise, Caputo had allegedly harmed Jordan so severely that she required reconstructive surgery on her face to repair a shattered eye socket. The injuries were serious enough to require surgical intervention for the cruise that would prove to be her last. How did a woman standing 4 feet 10 inches tall, reportedly afraid of heights, go over a 4-foot balcony railing during a nor'easter? The family's argument centered on physical improbability. The balcony railing stood 4 feet high, reaching nearly to Jordan's shoulders, given her diminutive stature. In calm conditions, accidentally going over such a railing would require losing balance in an unlikely way. In the middle of a nor'easter, with 50-mile-per-hour winds and 10-foot seas, the idea of an accidental fall became even less credible. The family noted that Jordan was reportedly afraid of heights, making it improbable she would voluntarily climb onto or over a balcony railing. If she had wanted to visit the friends in the adjacent cabin, she could have walked through the interior hallway, exactly as Caputo had done 17 minutes earlier. The hallway door was steps away. Why would anyone afraid of heights in a violent storm attempt to climb between balconies when a safe route existed? Caputo's account to the family did not match what surveillance footage showed. He told them that he and Jordan had been fooling around before she went overboard, but the interior cameras clearly showed him in the adjacent stateroom at the time she went over the railing. His story placed him in the cabin with her when video evidence proved he was next door. After Jordan went overboard, Caputo continued the cruise to Bermuda rather than remaining behind to assist with the search or await investigators. The ship maintained its scheduled itinerary. FBI agents from the New York field office met the Norwegian Dawn when it arrived in Bermuda. They interviewed passengers and crew, reviewed all available surveillance footage, and attempted to reconstruct exactly what had happened. The exterior footage showing Jordan going over the railing alone was central to their analysis. FBI Director Mark Mershin later stated publicly that the information they had acquired does not suggest a crime, but was careful to add that is not definitive. The Bureau attempted to enhance the exterior video to extract additional detail. Despite the family's concerns and Caputo's documented history of harming Jordan, no criminal charges were ever filed. The physical evidence, primarily the footage showing Jordan alone when she went overboard, apparently did not support prosecution. The question of how and why she went over that railing in those conditions remained unanswered. As of 2026, Mindy Jordan's body has never been recovered from the Atlantic Ocean. The case remains officially open with the FBI, but has been effectively cold for years, with no active investigative steps being taken. The family has channeled their grief and frustration into advocacy, working with the International Cruise Victims Organization to push for improved safety standards and investigative procedures for incidents at sea. Jorge Caputo was never charged with any crime related to Jordan's passing. While Mindy's family continues to suspect foul play despite official findings, the final case involves a defendant who confessed in detail to taking his wife's life. Shirley McGill. Shirley McGill was 55 years old, from Winnetka in the San Fernando Valley, Los Angeles, California. Recently retired from the California Department of Motor Vehicles, she had children from a previous marriage. She and her husband Robert shared history stretching back to their teenage years at Claremont High School. They lost touch for decades, reconnected through the internet before their 30th reunion, and married in Las Vegas in 2003. On July 14, 2009, Robert McGill's 55th birthday, the couple was aboard the Carnival Elation on a 5-day cruise to Baja, Mexico that had departed San Diego on July 11th. The trip celebrated Robert's birthday, Shirley's birthday, and her recent retirement. The ship was in international waters, approximately 3 hours out of Cabo San Lucas, heading back toward San Diego. During a shore excursion in Cabo San Lucas earlier that day, Robert consumed at least 20 servings of alcohol, including beer, hard liquor, and half a bottle of mezcal. By the time he returned to reboard, he was so severely intoxicated he could barely walk up the gangplank. Despite his obvious impairment, ship personnel permitted him to board. That evening, in their cabin bathroom, Robert beat Shirley repeatedly and then strangled her. The medical examiner determined the cause of passing was strangulation combined with blunt force injury to the head and torso. Shirley was found in a pool of blood. Evidence indicated she fought back before losing consciousness. What did Robert do after taking his wife's life? His actions demonstrated awareness rather than confusion. He changed out of his blood-stained clothes. He hung a "Do Not Disturb" sign on the cabin door. He went to an upper deck and smoked a cigar. He encountered another couple and ordered a bucket of beer. When they asked about his wife, he told them directly that he had ended her life. He telephoned his son and asked whether it was on television yet. In that call, he stated he had ended Shirley by accident, then immediately corrected himself, saying actually not by accident. At 8:20 p.m., one of the passengers Robert had been drinking with alerted ship security. Officers discovered Shirley's body in the cabin. Approximately 20 FBI agents boarded the Carnival Elation from a Coast Guard cutter while the vessel was still at sea. Robert waived his Miranda rights and confessed, stating he had ended his wife in the bathroom of their cabin with his bare hands. The ship returned to San Diego on July 16th, 2 days ahead of schedule. Robert was initially charged with first-degree taking of life and kidnapping. Prosecutors considered capital punishment given the brutality of the offense. The defense constructed an argument centered on extreme intoxication, contending the massive quantity of alcohol had impaired his judgment to the point he could not form intent for first-degree charges. Media dubbed this the Mezcal Scorpion defense. On July 14, 2011, exactly 2 years after the incident, Robert pleaded guilty to second-degree taking of life. The plea avoided trial uncertainty while guaranteeing conviction. Sentencing came on December 8, 2011, before Judge Irma E. Gonzalez. The defense pressed the intoxication argument, seeking a reduced sentence. Judge Gonzalez rejected this reasoning entirely. She noted Robert's conduct after Shirley's passing demonstrated full awareness. The methodical cleanup, the sign on the door, the cigar, the beer, the casual admission to strangers, the phone call to his son. Someone in an alcoholic blackout does not behave this way. Judge Gonzalez sentenced Robert McGill to life in federal prison. Prosecutor Jason Forge stated that whatever decency Robert McGill had, he left on the floor of that bathroom next to Shirley's beaten, bleeding, and broken body. As of 2026, Robert McGill remains incarcerated, serving his life sentence. No public record indicates any successful appeal. Shirley McGill was 55 years old when she boarded a cruise to celebrate her retirement. She never disembarked. This was all from our side today. Thanks for watching. Click here to check out another video.